Welcome to episode 35 of What Happens Next, the podcast designed to help you think about the next chapter of your life in a way that helps you improve your well-being in a wide range of areas. And my experience working with clients for a couple of decades is actually that conventional view of retirement, that, working hard, building a business or working in a career and challenging ourselves intellectually, even if we get to a point where a lot of us do, where we're thinking, I don't want to be doing this anymore. The answer to the next chapter isn't, I'm going to be doing nothing. And actually, I think some of the conversations we typically have about retirement is going through this world where we're doing quite a lot and moving into a world where we retire, we stop. And I don't think for a lot of people that's particularly healthy. So my mission with What Happens Next is to help people like you think about that retirement journey or what happens next in a slightly different way. Who am I? My name's Chris Dames. I'm the host of the What Happens Next podcast. I'm a chartered financial planner and I've been helping people plan for their retirements for over 2 decades now. I absolutely love it. Although, quick confession, part of the reason that I run the What Happens Next podcast is because as a man in his late 40s, I'm trying to work out what What Happens Next is in 10 years' time. But interviewing smart people about what happens next for them is part of that journey. Now, you can get in touch with the podcast, and we'd love to know what you think, simply by emailing hello@whathappensnext.life. Let us know what you think of both the podcast, the work we're doing on the website at www.whathappensnext.life, plus our YouTube channel, which seems to be increasingly popular. So if you're a fan of the YouTube channel, the insights we share on there, many of which are duplicated on the podcast to make sure that it's easy for you to get access to this knowledge and wisdom in a way that works for you, just simply let us know. Today, we talk to Joe Taylor, and Joe is the MD and the founder of Let's Talk Talent. Now, Joe's been involved in a bit of a squiggly career journey, she admits herself, through a corporate environment, BBC, Channel 4, large businesses, to a couple of years ago starting her own business. And this episode is related to how to challenge ourselves intellectually and through work in the next chapter of our lives. Because actually, even though retirement might consist of different work, for a lot of my clients, it still consists of work. Joe, in her interview, talks about the work that Let's Talk Talent does, helping organisations, people and teams get, keep and grow brilliant people. We talk quite a lot about purpose, and Joe and I share a desire to have a positive impact on other people's lives. And Joe certainly has a philosophy of purpose over profit. We talk talent and what is talent and how are everybody talented in their own unique ways. We talk about those tools, diagnostic tools that often put people in a bit of a box, like personality profiles, and Joe's approach to look at people more holistically. We look at the importance of self-reflection, and I think self-reflection is super important when we're thinking about the next chapter of our lives. But Joe's experience in helping business leaders feel a bit trapped, and we talk about the concept of a flourishing future, a future that looks better in the future than it did in the past, and how to achieve its goal. So there's loads there that we talk about with Joe. Again, this is another brilliant pad or notable or whatever you like to take notes on and paper episode, because there's plenty here that you're going to learn from. I hope you enjoy the interview. Welcome to the What Happens Next YouTube channel. What we're aiming to do with this channel is share content designed to make sure that you're supported through whatever's next in your life. And we'd love to continue to do that. I've got a favour to ask today, and what I'd ask you to do is just subscribe. It costs you nothing, but it really helps us deliver really good quality content on a consistent basis. Thank you, and let's go on to the interview. Good morning and welcome to What Happens Next. This is the LinkedIn Live and the video interview series where we interview interesting people that can provide us with a perspective when we're thinking about change and what happens next in our lives. And when I'm talking to my clients who typically approach us when they're in a period of change, one of the things that we always talk about is work and their relationship with work, their relationship within the businesses they work in, and whether they need to make positive change in their work environments to move forward with their lives. Now, interestingly, a lot of my clients, when they come and see me, are in a position where they're thinking about whether work's optional moving forward or not. But there's also a massive argument that actually work can be a positive force in our lives as long as we manage it in a way that works for us. And that's why I'm so pleased today we've got Joe Taylor to talk about the world of work, how it fits into our lives, how to make it a more positive force, and much, much more. Joe, how are you this morning?
I'm really good, thank you. I'm so excited about this. It's really nice to kind of be able to think about how you can bring your purpose, but also mold that with your passion, because that's really about bringing your whole self, whether that is starting out in work, you're kind of in the middle of your career, or you're kind of nearing the end of your career. So I'm excited to see what we talk about, Chris.
So am I. And even though I've sent you some questions, be prepared to go off road every now and again if it gets interesting. So we'll make sure we do that. First, and before we start sort of digging a bit deeper, tell our audience a bit about you.
Sure. So, hi, everybody. My name's Joe. I'm MD and founder of Let's Talk Talent. I started my career in a really squiggly way. So if you said to me, 35 years ago, that I would be running my own business and running that business for 9 years, I'd have told you to kind of get out of town. It's just not possible. I was kind of in a corporate environment. So I started off in the BBC. I ran a brand at Channel 4. I've worked in FTSE businesses, but there's always been an itch that I kind of wanted to scratch, which is that fundamentally, everybody has talent. And the question that we're not asking ourselves, and I think it ties into what we're talking about, Chris, today, is that we don't really understand our potential for what. Where can our potential take us? It's not just about performance. It's just about the possibilities that are pretty endless now in the world of work. So that's what Let's Talk Talent does. We help organizations, people, and teams get, keep, and grow brilliant people. And I feel incredibly lucky to in a way, run a business that helps people, but also does something that joins up my purpose and my passion. So I'm a lucky girl.
And I'm in the same boat. Super fortunate to do what we do, and I think that gratitude means that I get up every day wanting to help. I'm going to go off road really early, Joe, because you've said something there that I'm really curious about. So, firstly, moving from that corporate environment to starting your own business, what was that journey like? And what have you learned along the way?
Really, really good question. Well, if I'm honest with you, and I'm gonna be vulnerable on this, I'm going to tell you the kind of warts and all. I sort of fell out of love with corporate. I kind of got outmaneuvered, if the truth be told, in a corporate environment. I'm not a very good political player. I'm sort of, in a way, very much say it like it is and kind
Yeah.
of be damned. And sometimes that can work in your favor and sometimes it can't. So I was in a position where I had an opportunity to leave. I sort of, in a way, said, back me or sack me in effect. And so I decided to leave for that reason, because I didn't feel as if I fitted anymore within that business. But also, very personally, my then husband, unfortunately, he's passed away now, had a mental breakdown. His parents both died very, very suddenly and within a year of each other. And I felt I was jetting off all over the world, doing some really cool things, working with some cool people. But actually, my purpose and my passion for him meant that I really needed to take a step back.
Sure.
And I didn't know what I wanted to do. So I sat in front of a career coach, as you do at, 40 plus at that time, and went, I don't know what to do. And he looked at me and he said, let's look at two avenues. Let's look at a corporate life. And he said to me, you go literally pale, like gray, your
Yeah.
arms are crossed, you look dead miserable. And he said, that's not you, Joe. You're not that type of person. He said, all the color's been drained from you. But he says, when I talk to you about a portfolio career, your eyes light up, you kind of get all animated, your hands start going, you kind of get giddy, your hair gets brighter. And he said, what's the worst that can happen? Let's think future back.
Yeah.
And I said, okay, so I've got money so I left in March. I had money till December.
Yeah.
I was the main breadwinner. So there was I had to work. So he said, look, you've got a great network. You're really passionate about what you do. You're really good at what you do. So think about how you sell that, basically, and think about your brand as you, basically. So by June of that year, I'd picked up two sort of interim gigs,
Yeah.
and I set the business up purely, if I'm honest, I can say this to you because you're looking finance from a tax reason,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And the business was born from that. It was me and my late husband, and now there's 8 of us, and I've learned loads. I've learned how to run a business. I've learned about resilience. I've learned not to take things seriously sometimes, or personally, because when someone doesn't want to work with you or your business, it's not about you. It's about that they're not ready. I've learned how to build a brand and how to build a business that is authentic, and that is what I wanted to achieve within corporate.
Yeah.
And I think I've worked with so many different types of businesses that I would never have got the opportunity to do.
No, I suppose the interesting thing that you mentioned is that variety, isn't it? It's
Yeah,
getting up in the morning and going, how can I, as opposed to that, and I'm not saying all corporate jobs are like this
yeah,
because I've got clients that, but as opposed to that cookie cutter, this is the way
yeah,
we do things.
yeah,
In actual fact, a lot of it is play. And it's interesting. A lot of the clients who I'm talking to at the minute who are have done well financially in corporate environments and built wealth, and looking at work as looking at work through a framework of this is what work looks like because
yeah,
that's all they've experienced.
yeah.
Part of my conversation with them is, it doesn't need to be that way, right?
For sure. Look, I also think it's generational. I mean,
Yeah,
you'll see it with your daughters, right? And I'll see it with my nephews and nieces going forward. But when I went to the BBC out of university, I stayed there for 7 years. So, that's quite a long time. But I had probably 5 or 6 different jobs within that institution. 25,000 people, public service really, appealed to me. And I remember having a conversation with my dad, who's now 75, and him thinking I was complete lunatic
yeah,
and a real maverick because he was an optician and my sister's a lawyer, the other one's a doctor. And I was always slightly quirky and different. And him saying, why are you leaving? You could stay there and have an amazing career. And I said, because I want more, Dad. And I didn't know what more
how do you
meant.
find that? Yeah.
And I think that's been the journey. I've always done jobs that no one's done before. I've always tried to kind of create something that has longevity. For me, wanting to make a difference, a bit like you, drives me in a different way than I felt I could ever achieve within corporate. And I could earn a lot of money and I could do some cool things, but are people going to remember that?
Yeah.
No.
Is it enough?
Hopefully they'll remember this, right?
Yeah. Well, I think it's really interesting. One of the habits that I've started doing recently is journaling in the morning,
Right.
and it's really working for me at the minute. But I sort of designed the questions that I ask myself in the morning, and the one that resonates with me most is, what positive impact are you having on other people's lives
Love
today?
that. Love,
Um, and
love
it's
that.
really, could you, and today I'm hoping part of the positive impact is going to be people watching this interview and going, you know what, this makes me think a little bit differently about what I'm doing. So that positive impact drives me more than the money.
I love that. Well, I agree, because I always say, whenever I pitch the business, I say, look, we all have to make a living, and we all, whether you work in a charity, you still have to make
Yeah,
money, right, to do that positive impact.
yeah,
But for me, it's purpose over profit, and
100%.
that's not, that might sound altruistic, or people, watching this might think, yeah, but that's it's lofty. No, I think if you've got a purpose, then actually it drives your passion, and you do work harder, you do work longer, and the ripple effect of it is going to be awesome. I want people to be excited about going to work, and work for businesses that really
They're
talk to
doing
your
something.
head, heart, and gut,
Yeah,
right? So, like what you've tried to set up, what I'm setting up with LTT,
yeah,
but it takes time, and it also takes perseverance,
yeah, 100%.
and sometimes a bit of humility to realize that we need people, right? More than we think we do.
100%. Yeah, I mean, we describe it as do well, do good. So,
Love
so
that.
actually, the the impact, the positive impact we make in the world is the good we do for our clients and in general community. But it's also a social application as well. So, talk about kindness with my daughter and do all sorts of weird stuff that you wouldn't expect a financial planner to do, but I absolutely love. Um, Talent's an interesting word. What does talent mean to you? How do you define it? And when you're having a conversation about with somebody about the talent within their organisation, how's that framed? And one extra question: what's the difference between learnt skills and talent, in your opinion?
Okay. So lots of questions in that. So let's try and unpick it a little bit, and
Yeah,
prompt me, if I'm not giving you what you need. But for me, it goes back to what I said at the beginning, that everyone is talented, right? So when we define talent, and this is Dylan, sorry, if you're
what's
seeing,
it, Dylan?
and he's very talented at snoring. So talent is universal. Everyone is talented. It's really thinking about, where can your talent take you. So when we talk to organizations about talent, we say the talented many. So
Yeah,
that is everybody.
yeah,
And then we sort of define it into two other ways: that you would have highly regarded specialists within your business. So they may be in now people who know about or AI
yeah,
and
yeah,
data.
yeah,
It might be finance, it could be, as I said, IT, but it could be as broad as marketing, right? So people who want to go down a specialist route and build their expertise. And then you've kind of got future leaders. So
yeah,
and they're the people that you are your successors to your C-suite.
yeah, yeah,
And I think if you define talent in those three ways, when you look at succession, and you can build career paths for everybody.
yeah,
So you give people the possibilities of what is possible across your organization, but also you enable expertise to thrive and to be recognized in the same way that you might reward it, recognize it, value it, and recruit it.
yeah,
But then your future leaders, you may spend more time activating, because those people you need to move at speed. So the speed differential within those three, I think, means that people can have much more of a clear understanding of what talent is, and what it isn't.
yeah,
And we should never say a bit like, I hate the 9 box grid, but I just loathe it because it puts you in a box. I don't think talent, you should put yourself in a box.
Yeah. Yeah.
So if you do, then that is for the organization to unpick. And we've all got strengths, we've all got drivers, we've all got things that we want to be better at. So when we think about talent, we need to think about how we build expertise on, if
Yeah.
it's an on the x-axis, and experience on the y. And by doing that, you're being transparent, you're being consistent, and you're being fair.
Yeah. Yeah. I
And I
think
think that's important.
I think the interesting thing about assigning people in a particular personality or skill set is I think you miss out on the opportunity sometimes, don't you?
100%. 100%. And also, it sets a, I think, unhealthy relationship. So it becomes quite parent child.
Yeah.
So I
You
get,
are this, right?
you are
Yeah.
that. And then
Yeah.
it sort of tunnels you and go, oh, well, that's because they're X. So things like, personality profiles, like, I don't know, insights or disc, and lots of people are using that at the moment, and they're going, oh, I'm a red or I'm a cool blue. Well, does that mean that you're a better person?
No,
You
no,
know,
no. Yeah.
right? So I think it's much more holistic than that. And I think it's about having conversations to understand, what are your drivers? What are your values?
Yeah.
Where do you want to go? Where are your gaps and their opportunities? Can the business support you to do that or not? And the best organizations that we work with say, look, we may not have the opportunities, but we're going to get you ready to set the world on fire in that industry. And that for me is enlightened talent management.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Losing people isn't always a bad thing, is it? Like setting them free and then
For sure.
maintaining the connections and doing
For
that
sure, for
is an open
sure.
way to do it. Yeah, yeah,
You don't be talent hoarders.
yeah,
Be talent scouts.
yeah.
Be the scout that goes out and creates the opportunities. Don't be a hoarder, because it doesn't work. Because people have choice now, right?
Yeah, what's interesting as well, particularly when I think about the sort of clients we work with, who are typically in their mid 50s to mid 60s,
Yeah,
typically senior in their business, or they've built their own business, or they're in a position where they've been in the C-suite in larger businesses. Is that the way that they define themselves internally?
yeah,
So part of it might be, well, my name's Steve and I'm a managing director of a construction company.
yeah.
And part of the transition we try and make when we're thinking about what happens next, and again, typically they come to me to work out whether they've got enough because they know that they can't consistently do what they're
Right.
doing forever, is to redefine purpose and identity outside of that box, outside of that job role. If somebody came to you and they wanted to know where to start, but they wanted to continue to work, where would you start with them?
So I think you make a really good point that job titles are becoming redundant. And actually, isn't it about looking about what your skills and your capabilities, your knowledge, your attributes, and where your passion lies? So I do a lot of career coaching, and I always start from, where's the end point? So I'm coaching someone at the moment who is in a really difficult position within her business. It's quite a toxic environment.
Yeah,
And we've come to the conclusion that actually, for her mental health and for her well-being, she needs to leave.
make a change. Yeah,
And it's been a really difficult decision for her, because fundamentally she feels she's letting the business down, but also she feels like she's quitting.
yeah, yeah,
And I've had to sort of work with her to reframe it and say, no, actually, you're leaving for yourself. You're putting yourself first, which can feel really odd at any level, but at a senior level, sometimes kind of thinking about where you want your life to go. I mean, my mum has this phrase, and I think it's fantastic, which is, life is not a dress rehearsal.
yeah, yeah,
So back to your, to your point is, I would exactly say that to somebody. Okay, so what do you want to do? How could you be a non-exec if you wanted to stay and give something back for a charity or a non-for-profit or
Yeah,
something like that? Could you be a mentor for young people? What are you doing? Do you have grandchildren? How can you help them with their homework? Can you, volunteer?
yeah,
Into the community. There's tons of. Can you be could you retrain? So my partner his ex-army, done loads and loads of different things, has recently found his passion around coaching and has retrained. But
yeah.
he's using all the skills and the attributes that got him.
Yeah,
Yeah. So I think it's about unlocking that and giving people an understanding of their confidence gremlins.
yeah, yeah,
And there's a really brilliant book that if anybody watching this, if you're thinking about your career and transitions, I didn't write it, but I'm happy to plug it. It's Helen Tupper and Sarah Ellis have written a book called Squiggly Career.
okay, love that.
They've also written a book called You Coach You.
Yeah,
It's all about how you reframe those conversations around your career and I think the word career in effect, Chris, should be banned because it's about your pathway. Where
yeah,
can your pathway take you?
yeah,
Career is like 19, like my parents, right? We all
yeah,
have different needs and wants,
yeah.
and we're never at the end. We're actually always at the beginning, and if we reframe it like that, then I think it has a
100%.
different tendency, right?
It's new. It's interesting. It's a new journey, isn't it? That's sort of where we start.
Yeah,
And I think the conversation, the more modern conversation, is what success? What does success look like?
sure, for sure.
It's really interesting and probably similar to your lady. We've had people come to us and say, superficially, I look really successful, but I'm not happy.
Yeah,
And for me,
so sad.
happiness has got to come first. Let's
Sure,
design the life.
for
So,
sure.
the question we love is, if you could spend your time doing whatever you want, how would that look?
Well, really interestingly, I had that at the beginning of the year. I did a session with a practitioner of Lego Serious Play, which asked me that question, Chris.
Yeah,
Basically said, "What would you like your life? What's your perfect?" Basically said, "What's your perfect day?"
yeah,
Got me to build it out of Lego.
yeah,
Then got me to say, in a year's time, if we were sitting here and you were looking at your perfect day, what would that look like? And we had a whole discussion around that. And it was light bulbs were going off all of the time because I spent so many years focused on work defining. And actually, I've come to the realization that it's part of who I am,
yeah,
not the only entity. And I think when we get to certain stages in our career and we've learned a lot and we can look back,
yeah.
in a way, you've kind of got to learn from the past, live in the present, but plan for the future, right?
Yeah, 100%. I'll just give a quick plug to one of our other What Happens Next interviews, and I think you'll find it really insightful, Joe. There's a guy that we interviewed a few weeks ago called George Kinder, who's a live planner, lives in Hawaii. We interviewed him. I'm sitting in my office in Essex, and he turns his laptop round to show me a picture of an Hawaiian beach, and it was pouring
Oh,
down rain in Essex at the time. So that was nice. But
amazing.
what he does is he's got three questions that he talked about. And those three questions are: you what if money was no object, how would you spend your time? Now, interestingly, I'd still include a bit of work in my part of the issue we've got when we're thinking about what happens next in our lives is having the self-awareness, having the introspection to be able to think about what the gaps in our well-being are. And we're doing loads of work at the minute with what happens next to build solutions that are going to help you think about well-being in a nuanced way when you're thinking about how it applies to your life. One of the first things we've built that you can use today is our What Happens Next quiz. It's free to do, takes about 5 minutes, but what it will do is give you an insight into the areas of strengths when it comes to your well-being and the areas you might want to improve. You can take the What Happens Next quiz at whathappensnext.life/quiz, and I hope it helps you in your journey to work out what happens next for you. In my
Me
financial
too.
independence, and it will continue that way forever because that motivates me, and that
Yeah.
might change. Plans change, and that's fine. The other two really interesting. So the second question he asks is: you go to the doctors, and the doctor says, "I've got really bad news. You're going to be completely fit and healthy, but you've only got a year left. How are you
Oh,
going to?"
wow.
And then question three is you go back to the doctors and he says, like, I made a mistake. It's not a year, it's a day. What are you going to?
Oh my God.
And the interesting aspect of that is thinking of framing it in a way, and they're really actually, I think you've got to be careful with those questions because they're really direct and they're
Oh my God. Yeah, yeah, yeah. There's
really,
no hiding
really
from that.
hard. But the way that George uses them, and the way that I think is probably best to use them, is to just focus the mind. I prefer the Lego version because that sounds like more fun. But actually asking yourself those pertinent questions is a real insight in terms of
For sure.
what you actually might want your life to look like in the future. It's really interesting. Um, You've mentioned quite a bit about business leaders who feel that they're in a position where they're a bit trapped in what they
Yeah.
do at the minute. If you're a business leader watching this, or you run a business and you're watching this and you feel a bit trapped, what's the first step you need to take to make sure that you're moving forward?
Well, I think it's about being honest with yourself to start with. I think, I always I'm very driven by my gut. So I think it takes a bit of bravery and a bit of vulnerability to acknowledge that that's how you feel. And then the second point is, who can you ask and who have you got in your corner to help?
Yeah,
So whether that's, talking to you, Chris, in terms of financial planning. So, what do you need to survive? So the kind of practical. Who've you got, your family. So, I've leaned on my family, my partner. Um, I also think friends
yeah,
play a bit, you might find a kindred spirit in your friends that are thinking the same thing, and you can kind of support each other, and you might find something quite interesting to do with them.
yeah, yeah,
I think it's sometimes writing down what you're great at. So, you know, sometimes you can get into a negative spiral where you're going, well, I'm rubbish at this, I'm rubbish at that, I'm kind of, getting too old, or,
yeah,
so writing down your about the chapters of your life, I kind of call it,
yeah,
and thinking about, okay, so what got me here, and at different stages. So you really sort of celebrate the successes. So you turn that negative into a positive.
yeah,
Then
yeah,
there's formal things that you can do by, getting a coach or being mentored, or, joining different groups. And so I think it comes back to both, I suppose, individual responsibility, because we're all responsible for our own happiness,
yeah,
and our own, journey, the network,
yeah, yeah,
and then probably some sort of formal support, if you need that. And I don't think it has to cost a lot of money, but it's about investing in yourself,
yeah,
which I don't think as business leaders we're very good at. So if you ask me how much I do to develop myself, well, this is development,
yeah,
but I'm not doing anything formal
yeah,
because I don't have the time, or I perceive I haven't got the time, right?
yeah, yeah,
So I think sometimes you get to a certain position, and again, I don't want to talk about role, but position, and you think that you need to know it all.
yeah, yeah,
And actually we don't. My parents, I remember saying to me, we still feel 20 or 30. We're still making it up as we go along. When we were parents, like Chris, when you were, you suddenly, your wife was pregnant and you go, okay, we're going to be parents. And then 9 months later, the daughter comes along and you go, what do I do now? And in life,
I'm still doing that.
exactly, right? Exactly. So I think there's a misnomer that with age definitely comes experience, but it doesn't mean that we're any different than we were. Insecurities, concerns, worries, our personality, I don't think moves that exponentially from the core of who we are. I still think I'm still who I was in my teens and 20s. I've grown up a lot and had different experiences, but the core of me is the same. So getting back to that core is really important.
100%. One question I loved, and when I was doing the research for this interview, really resonated with me, was that idea of a flourishing future. I really like that.
Yeah.
Because actually, if we're both doing our jobs right, our client should have flourishing future.
Yeah. That they should, but I think that's not our responsibility.
True.
So I think there's certain things that we can do. So you can help somebody, you can ask them some difficult questions, and I can do the same in my coaching or in, LTT. But it has to be that someone wants to do it.
Yeah.
So, you can, with the example that I gave you, that lady wanted to make the change and she's made the change. I've helped her get to that by asking her some difficult questions. But at the end of the day, she's got to want to do it. And if she doesn't, that doesn't matter. That's on her.
Yeah, 100%.
And I think sometimes we can take a lot of responsibility. I don't know if you feel that, Chris, of responsibility because you're driven by your purpose to solve someone. But actually, that's not our job. And I find that quite difficult not to take that on sometimes, if I'm completely honest.
Joe, you make a really interesting point. I think what we've come to the realization is we might have a client come to see us who we try and help, we answer the right questions, we frame everything, and they decline using our services at that particular point in time. And that's always a not yet. Our experience says that actually, for a really deep relationship of trust, do it when you're ready, not when we're ready. I'm relaxed about that because I think, as you say, trying to push somebody to do something they're not prepared to do because psychologically and along the journey they're not ready is counterproductive. So helping people when they're ready is the important bit. But if somebody came to you and said, right, I'm ready to flourish and I don't know where to start, where would you recommend they take that first step?
So I would start by using a tool called I'd use two tools. I could use the career wheel, which looks at what drives you. So could be money, could be home life, could be success, could be whatever it is. But I'd also use the career lifeline, which goes back to put your positive and your negative work experience down.
Right.
And then you start to correlate what made it positive and negative. And so you start to look for patterns. So for me, I'm a bit of a data geek. I kind of like to see data because I think you can have a conversation, right? We can have a conversation today about how you flourish, how I flourish. But for me, sometimes seeing things in black and white, I'm a really visual person, enables you to help someone faster. So I think by understanding the patterns that have driven somebody in their career, whether they're starting out in the middle or thinking about what's next, I think really helps because it gives them light bulb moments, and you're wanting to activate that intrinsic and extrinsic motivation ultimately.
Yeah.
I think there's other things that you can think about around network.
Yeah.
So, networks are becoming even more important. I'm not just talking about how many friends you've got on Insta or LinkedIn or anything like that, but how's your network working for you? What's your current job network, your development network, and your future job network?
Okay.
And getting people to start to think about those in a way, where's the gap and what can they do, and come up with a plan.
How was that for you when you made that transition? I'd imagine the network that you had in your corporate role had
Yeah.
to slightly change when you moved into the world of entrepreneurship and business ownership. What changes did you make, and what tips would you recommend somebody thinking about that transition?
Well, luckily, I'd had really good relationships with people that I'd worked with. So
That
still,
always helps, right?
it always really helped. So I hadn't left, in a cloud or anything like that. So I was able to go to people and say, look, I'm coming out of corporate, I'm happy to do interim or contract. Have you got anything? And I sort of, in a way, used to meet people for coffees and sort of say, look, I know you haven't got anything, but who do you think I should speak to? So I was ballsy, and I wasn't afraid to ask for help in
Yeah,
that sense. I was also clear about what I was looking for. So I wasn't looking for a job. I was looking for, look, do you have an interesting project? Can I help you? I did a lot of stuff for free.
yeah,
So I probably did quite a bit for free for 6 months to, in a way, do that. I go to networking breakfasts. So I used to go to, by all of the big headhunters at the time, used to go and used to meet people at your level and people above your level and hear interesting talks and kind of try and build connections. But our business is, has 70% returnable business, and still referrals are a big part. So people take us with them. So I
yeah,
think it's about you. I mean, look, some would say I'm an extrovert, but I definitely have introversion tendencies. So I find it difficult to go into a room. But once I'm in the room and I
good
kind
time.
of know somebody, I'm absolutely fine. So I think it's sometimes taking yourself out of your comfort zone. So
Yeah.
for me, my advice is to sometimes think about how you can be uncomfortably lost.
What
And
is that?
well, that means that we are sometimes not sure what the future holds,
Yeah,
but we're willing to kind of come out of our comfort zone and see what that possibility might look like, rather than have a plan and kind of stick to it. And I
yeah,
think there's something, the best ways that you learn are being uncomfortably lost, because actually that enables you to lean in more to people. And network is not just, as I said, it's you will have networks within your business, you'll have networks in your development. So conferences,
yeah,
talks, things like,
yeah.
coming, listening to podcasts, listening to things, seeing us talking, all builds a network, right? If you're interested, you kind
100%.
of contact the people, right? But also thinking about what you want networking to do for you,
Yeah,
and being really clear about that, so that if you do contact people on LinkedIn, I will always reply. Even if someone's trying to sell me something, I'll go, look, it's not for me. But if someone asks me, would you mentor me, or would you, um, talk to me about something, I'm like, well, why wouldn't I? Because
yeah,
actually, you never know what you can get out of a conversation. And for me, our name, Let's Talk Talent, is all about talking.
yeah, yeah,
So I think you have to try some stuff and see what works for you, rather than there being like a one size fits all.
One of the books that I'm writing about at the minute, because I'm referencing it in the What Happens Next book, is a book called Design Your Life by a guy called Bill Burnett. His TED talk is amazing, by the way. And he talks about the benefit of small experiments, small incremental experiments.
Yes. Yeah,
And
yeah.
actually that, I think a lot of the reason people don't make positive change in their lives is because it's scary, right? If I've been doing this for 40
Yeah.
years, I'm sort of
Yeah.
this is a really scary jump.
Well,
But
change is
don't
scary, right? Change is scary.
100%.
But your life is in beta. I mean, to your point, and building on what you just said, your life is in beta all of the
Yeah,
time. So
yeah. Work
therefore,
in progress, isn't it?
yeah, exactly. And I'm by no means the finished article. And I hope that I hope I never feel like that, because if I did, then probably I'm not at my peak performance, and I
Yeah.
probably should think about doing something else if
There
I've got
always needs to be a gap, isn't there? Yeah.
100%. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, with permission for your mum, and I know it's not your mum's phrase, but life is not a rehearsal, and a t-shirt would be a good thing, wouldn't it? Do you know what
I
I mean?
love that. Yeah, oh, for sure. We should all be walking around with those sorts of slogans for sure.
Yeah, 100%. So, as I said, Joe, what we want to do is empower people to make positive change in their life through the What Happens Next project. And a lot of the clients that come and see me are, had successful careers, run successful businesses,
Yeah,
still continue to do so, but are at that transition point.
yeah.
We've already recognized that change is scary, right? We know change is scary. But what are your top tips for managing and navigating that change when people are thinking about what's next?
Well, I think so for me, it's about understanding yourself.
Yeah,
Right. So if you understand yourself, then you know what is scary to you. So what's scary to me is having nothing to do, right? So I struggle really. I've read a book recently about the art of rest, and because I struggle to really switch off. And in this book, it talks about eight different reasons why you rest. And my way of resting is going for a walk with Dylan, my dog, right?
yeah,
Other people's are watching television. Other people's are sleeping. Other people's are reading, whatever it is.
yeah,
So I think we're all unique.
yeah, yeah.
And therefore, what's right for me or right for you, Chris, is not necessarily going to be right for some of the people right?
100%.
So I think understanding yourself is the key to unlocking your potential and unlock it, and in a way not being scared of change.
Yeah,
So I think for me, I would probably write it down.
yeah, yeah.
I'm always a good one for sort of drawing a line on a page in the middle and going the pros and cons and thinking. I tend to catastrophize.
Okay.
So I go, what is the worst that could happen by making that change? None of that is going to happen, because
Yeah,
that's the worst thing. The world's going to end. I'm going to lose my house. I'm going to whatever, right? And what are my mitigating factors? I work back, and then I go, okay, well, that's not going to happen. So actually, it isn't as scary, is it? So I reframe it.
interesting. Yeah, I like that. And I've never heard catastrophizing as a positive technique before, but actually taking it from your head onto the page and then saying,
Yeah,
is that really real?
yeah,
Is a really interesting concept. I really like that. I really like that. And then on the other side of the line, so if you've
yeah,
got a line there, you've got the catastrophe on there.
yeah.
Is it best case scenario on the other side? What do you do?
It's best case scenario, but it's also, and there's a third column, which is what am I going to do? So you've got kind of best case and worst case. And then in the middle, you've got, okay, so how do I stop going into that to move to there? So you're kind of moving from right
Really
to
get
left.
into the practical bit, right?
Yeah. So like we talked about, so that might be going and seeing a headhunter, going and seeing a financial planner, going on a course,
yeah, yeah,
looking into a different industry, my network, doing a little network audit,
yeah,
talking to my wife or my partner or whatever.
yeah.
Um, you know, thinking about from a financial perspective, do I have a mortgage? When does that expire?
Mm.
What's my life insurance? All of
But it's
those.
the incremental actions that sit in the middle, isn't it?
It
That get
is.
you
It
from
is.
like.
Yeah.
I think that's a really, really interesting concept. But you are just to be clear, Joe, you're not alone in not resting well. I think, I think when I look at my life, I'm like, right, what am I going to do next? It's like I could just take a break,
I
but I
know.
won't.
I'm really, I'm really bad. I mean, my partner is very good at being able to switch off much more than me. I think that's from the army, and having to have long periods between
Yeah.
service and things like that. But for me, it comes. It's years in the making. But I think for me, there's something about me feeling like I'm lazy.
Yeah.
And so I've got to reframe. So, there's work for me to do, right? In
Yeah.
terms of reframing that in my mind. Actually, it probably takes more strength than I give it credit for sitting down and having a day where I might be in my PJs watching, reality television. But the good that it's doing for me mentally, while it's not stimulating my physical needs to kind of get out,
Yeah.
we're balls of energy. When you look at energy comes from physical energy, it comes from mental energy, it comes from sort of collective spiritual. We kind of need to identify where our energy magnets are,
Yeah.
and what in a way is the yin to the yang, and work out when we are at risk of burnout, because I've burnt out a couple of times. I don't know about you, Chris, but I've and that's because I haven't looked after myself. So I do think, that mental health, and that has a big part to play in how we turn up sometimes.
100%. I again, the reason that we part of the reason we're doing what happens next is to highlight the importance of balance in our lives. Like sort of aspiring for a definition of success that's just about the amount of money you've got
Yeah.
is just a flawed concept
Yeah.
in our opinion. You may believe
No,
something different.
no, I agree with you. I agree with. Well, look, it's like we were talking about before we came on live today. It doesn't give you a hug
Yeah,
at the end of the day. And for me, I'm a I need that the physicality,
yeah,
and the money for me is about being able to do the things that I want to be able to do, to live my life with purpose and
100%.
be happy. But it isn't, if as you said, if I won the lottery, or I sold my business, it wouldn't stop me working, because actually I enjoy it too much.
Yeah,
And but the enjoyment becomes a strength, but it becomes an overused strength, and that's where we've got to all watch ourselves sometimes.
balance it a bit more.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, 100% agree. Now, one thing I wanted to pick your brains on, and I've never had one, and I don't think I understood the definition particularly well. Career philosophy. So,
Right.
what's that? How do we get one, and why is it useful?
So for me, a career philosophy basically is how organizations can define what they mean by careers
Yeah,
in their business. So is that about the careers are owned by the individual, backed by the business, supported by managers? So it's as simple as that. It also enables you to be really clear, consistent, fair, transparent, all of those things.
yeah, yeah.
But it also can show you the join up across your employee experience.
Okay.
So, how do when you're recruiting someone, so when you're getting a great person in, how do they feel that they can develop themselves within? So you're being really clear. If you are growing, what does that learning and development look like? What
Good.
does promotion, progression, all of those types of things? If you're a leader, what is your responsibility in helping your people unlock their potential and their talent? So it's basically, you being really clear. It's a bit like a manifesto, but
Yeah.
really simple, to say careers at X means this. We're going to do this, but this is what we
Good.
expect of you. It's the deal,
It's the
basically.
deal. It's the deal. And actually, I mean, it sounds like when when you're working with employers and recommending they build this career philosophy,
Yeah,
there's a bit of stretch in the deal, right? It's that self development stuff.
100%,
Is it
100%.
how important do you think? And I'm thinking about my team and how we encourage this too. How important do you think owning your own development is in terms of importance when you're thinking about your teams?
I look, I think we all own our own life and we all own our own destiny.
Yeah.
So I think that I wouldn't want someone to tell me where my potential could take me. I would want to have an adult conversation about what my aspirations were and what you think, and get regular feedback, and be given opportunities to stretch myself intellectually, but also emotionally. So I think we have to switch the dial from this parent-child approach where we tell you what you can, where you can reach, and we only judge careers on performance, how you're performing. So majority of businesses that we're working with at the moment are, it's a hackneyed phrase, is we want to be a high performance culture. Well, what
Right.
does that mean?
Yeah. What
Right?
does it mean? Is it just one of those corporate slang terms?
I think it, well, to a certain extent, I think it is,
Yeah.
because you can't define it. Because what, high performance means to you, Chris, and high performance means to me, it's something that I think's been borrowed from sport.
Yeah.
um,
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. So you look at Dr. Steve Peters, who works with Ronnie O'Sullivan. He talks about peak performance. You talk about Sir Dave Brailsford, who 2012 with the
Yeah.
cycling team talked about small incremental changes.
Yeah.
For me, culture is one of those things that's like an ecosystem. It's everyone's responsibility. And if you share that responsibility out, then everyone has a responsibility to make the business great, right?
I
But
suppose, I
high
suppose,
performance, go on, sorry.
I suppose the interesting thing there is what we're talking about. Culture can be really, and I'm a bit of a data geek as well. So culture can be one of those things that you feel as well as see. How do
100%.
you measure? How do you measure that?
Well, for me, you make a really, really good point. For me, culture is about the practical elements, which most businesses focus on. So,
Yeah.
your maternity policy, your holiday, your, when we used to work in offices, your kind of, how you turn up, your dress code, your health and safety, ED&I.
Yeah.
So you're measuring the practical elements, right? So you're measuring retention, you're matching engagement, you're measuring the how the business is doing, the
Yeah.
practical elements. But the things that we don't measure are the philosophical, which is basically the personality of a business. So, what
Yeah.
does it really mean? So, are we really looking after our people? Do we care? Do we have strong, empathetic leaders? Do we are we a place that people aspire to work in? Have we got some amazing stories? It's all of those kind of more
Yeah.
personality traits,
Yeah.
which
Yeah.
actually I think the generation that's coming into the workforce are looking for more than they
100%.
are in terms of the practical, because we're working, most of us are working hybrid, or
Yeah.
some of us, like my business, is working fully remote. We
Right.
don't have an office in that sense. So culture for me is that when you on a Sunday evening and you're at home, it's that feeling in your stomach that makes you think, I really want to get up on Monday morning.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's no more difficult than that for me.
I think I've been through both. I mean, now sort of Sundays are really good because I feel like I'm sort of in control of my own destiny. I hope it's the same for my team.
Yeah,
But I think we've all been there working for employers where we
for
thought
sure.
that Sunday nights were the worst part of the week because it was the anticipation of going in on Monday. So it's a real one. We've talked quite a lot about the transition of work and the way that work's changing.
Yeah,
Now I'm 46, so I've seen quite a lot of transition in my working life, and expect to over the next how
yeah.
many years I continue. What's the big trends that you've seen in your working life, and where do you think it's going?
Well, I think technology has had an exponential impact on my career. So when I first started in post production, they were doing the schedules on paper. And yeah, cool. I'm 50, so I'm a little bit older than you, but not that far off. That when I was at school, the first sort of computers were
Apple, well, we had the old Apple with the owl on, the BBC Micro
well,
ones.
yeah,
I,
well,
I remember my first job. still using carbon paper. Do you remember that? Like, and you
Oh
go,
my God! Yeah, I remember when you used to send at the BBC, you used to print something off and put it in an envelope, and it would then go, an internal envelope would go to you or to somebody else
in the building.
in the building. I mean, seriously, how old are we, right? Um, so I
Oh,
think technology is determining the future of work.
yeah,
And whether you believe, I don't believe that we're all going to be redundant and we're all going to be taken over by robots. I still think there's a reason why human resources has an H in it.
yeah,
So I do think people want to be managed and led and inspired by humans. So I don't think that that's going to change, but I think the way that we do things is going to change.
yeah,
So I think some of the more operational, some of the more transactional tasks will be automated. So I think automation will, change the way we work. I
yeah,
think COVID has changed the psychological contract with work.
yeah.
So there were many, many businesses that we worked with and still do that believe they could never work remotely, that the productivity of the business would cease to a halt, that their profit. Now, some
And it didn't,
businesses,
did it? Yeah, it carried on. Yeah, yeah,
what's changing now, which worries me, is that the trend is going backwards. Is that people are starting to bring people back into the office. It was sort of 3-2 as
yeah,
was the
yeah,
sort of norm. Now it's becoming 4 and 5 days.
yeah,
So I think we've got to be really careful that we don't go back and become in that sort of old factory way of
yeah. It
working.
does your way of working. Yeah.
So I think
Um,
that worries me.
I had a really interesting conversation with a new client of mine last week who was in his 70s and retired, but was in tech for all of his life. And we were talking about AI. And he said, and I think I'd probably agree with this, that throughout his life and his career, he had loads of experiences where technology played a part. I've just seen the dog's tail wag there. It just put me up a
Yeah,
bit.
yeah, yeah. He's
Te-
ready to move.
They want to get involved, Joe. It's an interesting
You will get
conversation.
doodles,
Um,
yeah.
Technology played a part, and each time there was an element of fear, but each time actually it enabled us
Yes.
to progress. I'm hoping, and I haven't got any answers, and I've got to go along with the ride like everybody else. But I'm hoping it allows us, as you alluded to have more human conversations and
Agreed.
automate the bits that aren't. What do you think?
I 100% agree with you. I think it will hopefully free up people to have that more human contact. But I think we've got to make time. So what we're seeing and the work that we're doing at the moment around team days
Yeah,
is where people are bringing their teams back together more frequently and thinking about the way that they work. So work modes. So when's the optimum time, and why am I bringing people together? So is that for a brainstorm, for example? Is that because I want to bring that camaraderie and that closeness together? But doing one-to-ones, I can do them online. So I think it makes it more purposeful about why we're doing things in that
yeah,
way.
yeah,
But I think it also puts a lot of pressure on managers and leaders.
yeah,
Um, and I'm not sure that we've sort of taken managers and leaders with us on
yeah.
the journey. Think about the work that we still do with management. It's still quite a big percentage of our work. And, that saddens me that in my lifetime, potentially in work, we'll still have this question of managers not managing or leaders not leading. So I think it means
What's
that.
your differentiation between that? Well, what should a manager and a leader do?
So I think a leader is about being the strategic driver to say why you're doing the purpose,
Yeah,
basically. Why
yeah.
are we
It's the
here?
heart bit, isn't it? It's
It's
that
the
bit.
heart, yeah.
Yeah,
And the manager is operationalizing and it's showing you what and how you need to do, and helping you be the best that you can possibly be. A leader sets the tone, the manager, in a way, enables it to happen. And I think we're trying to get people to be both. And I think you can train a manager, but you can't develop a leader. You've either got those leadership traits or you
really
haven't.
interesting. Really, really interesting. I've loved chatting today. Really, really enjoyed it. And I think we went down some rabbit holes that will add real insight to the What Happens Next community. Hopefully, you agree if you're watching. and also really highlighted the role that work might play in our future lives when we're considering what happens next. I'd love for people, if they're watching this, to reach out to you, Joe. So can you let us know where they can find you?
Sure. Well, you can find me on LinkedIn, but you can also email me directly at joe@letstalktalent.co.uk or pop along to our website, letstalktalent.co.uk.
Perfect. Thank you so much for joining us today, Joe, and thank you for
Pleasure.
watching. Let us know at www.whathappensnext.life what you thought of the interview, and we'll see you on What Happens Next soon. I really hope you enjoyed that interview. And I know that podcasts are brilliant because when you're on the go, you can listen wherever you want. However, if you've got a few minutes, and like me, you're a bit more of a visual learner, you might want to visit our YouTube channel at What Happens Next Live. There'll be a link in the comments as well so that you can find us. And what I really appreciate you doing, we've got all the interviews on there, all the interviews you're listening to right there on there. But what we've also done is recorded exclusive content specifically for the YouTube channel that you can watch and get more insights into the next stage of your life and navigating it successfully. I'd ask while you're there, if you can, like the videos you like, and subscribe to the channel. It helps us help more people. Thank you. So that was the interview with Joe. I'd love for you to share your big win. Let me know at hello@whathappensnext.life the one tip you're going to take from that interview that's going to improve incrementally your next chapter of your life. Have a lovely day, and we'll see you on the podcast soon.